The 70s were a pretty darn awesome time to grow up. And one of the things that made that era so wonderful was a division of Peter Pan Records called Power Records. Here's the very first Power record that I ever received as a gift. Man, this thing was so awesome. Basically, it was a comic book with audio included on the 45 RPM record. And unlike some of the other book and record sets out there, you know, the Disney ones, these things didn't hold back the punches. There was plenty of action and mayhem galore. I can't tell you how many times I played this particular Power record, but it was a bunch. Fortunately, my folks, trying to keep me away from the evils of rock and roll, well, they were eager to feed my Power Records addiction instead. This one didn't come with a comic book, and because of that, it was just about half the price, but it was just as awesome. Here's one of my all-time favorites. You know, I loved the Star Trek stuff. After the animated series was canceled, these records were the best way to get new adventures of Captain Kirk and the rest of the crew of the Starship Enterprise. I dabbled in the Marvel stuff like this adventure with Captain America and the Falcon, but truth be told, when I had a choice, I would typically go for something featuring a DC Comics superhero, usually Batman. This record was actually a full-length 33 1/3 LP with 2 stories on each side. This one didn't have a comic book, but this one did. Because it was an LP instead of a 45, this comic book was huge and the artwork was absolutely gorgeous, which as I look back now should not have come as a surprise because much of it was done by this guy, Neal Adams, a true comic book legend who seemed to be willing to put his talents to work for Power Records. We just lost Neal a few weeks ago. He was 80 years old at the time of his passing. It is tough to see him go, but thankfully, he left behind some pretty wonderful art to be remembered by. Here is some of Neal's best work for Power Records. While not all of the artwork was done by Neal Adams, it was all equally wonderful as well. And whenever a new book and record set would show up at our local K-Mart, the cover art was guaranteed to reel me in and have me begging whichever parent was handy to purchase it. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shut up for a minute or so and just let everyone enjoy some of the really amazing artwork that came with these records. By the time the 80s rolled around, I had moved on to other things, mostly that darn rock and roll music that my parents feared would consume my soul. And in one incredibly stupid move, I gave my entire collection of Power records away. For some strange reason, I thought I'd never want to listen to them again. Boy, was I ever wrong. I didn't understand then the power of nostalgia. I didn't realize that I could literally travel through time by firing up one of these little audio masterpieces. Over the years, I've been able to reacquire a few of them, and whenever I listen to one, I am transported via my memories to the late 70s and what seemed like a simpler time. You know, if I really want to listen to a specific Power record that I no longer have, YouTube always comes to the rescue. Yep, most of them can be found right here. They're just a mouse click away. Speaking of mouse clicks, here's a video about Dynamite Magazine. Remember that one? That I think you'd really enjoy. Go ahead, I'm done here. Thanks so much for watching.